I call the August 24th BPW monthly meeting to order. We do the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance.
To the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And a moment of silence. Thank you. All right. We have the entire board here, the mayor, our solicitor, Mike Hoffman, and manager and assistant general manager. So first item is additions and deletions to the agenda. We're going to strike the discussion on well number 3, which is item 11. And Austin will talk about it a little bit more when he gets to the general manager's report. So make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mr. President, can I ask the secretary's section be dropped out of that?
Sure.
I just to bring people to date on
the
mitigation. I should have mentioned it earlier.
Okay, no problem.
Mr. President, just to clarify, the only thing that's being removed is the verbal secretary report, but approval of minutes are remaining in the consent agenda.
Good point. Yes.
Right. All right. Inframark.
Mr. President, we need to vote on the consent agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry. Have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
In favor?
Aye. You want to
Yeah, I was gonna say.
have my report at this point or?
Oh, I guess probably, yes.
Yeah.
I've been told yes.
Okay. No, I just wanted to bring the rest of the board up to speed on what the mitigation committee has accomplished. I'll be very quick. Of course, I think I mentioned before that it was agreed that we'd use the year 2050 as our base year. We just recently agreed that with the flood design elevation, not the flood elevation itself, but what things should be designed to, the height. Yeah, presently in the beach area, it's elevation 9. And what the committee feels that we should raise that to for 2050, since DENREC's projections for 2050, the sea level rise between 9 inches and 23 inches. The committee wanted to do the worst case scenario, the 23-inch rise for their purposes of their study. So the design elevation hit that just about 11. So that would be the design at flood elevation in 2050.
That's 11 feet.
11 elevation 11, yes. And before we didn't actually formally approve that because the next day we were having our meeting with GHD and they gave a preliminary report on their work. And we wanted to see what they were using at the treatment plant. And their work came up to between 10.6 and 11.6. They said. So we were right in the middle of 11. So we feel comfortable. So at the next meeting we have next week, I'm going to ask them to approve that officially for our committee. Of course, we already have.
Press.
Yes. I'm sorry.
We can talk it over at mitigation, but I might recommend that you don't actually say a number like 11 or
Okay.
11.5 because the actual floodplain elevation varies from 7 to 9 across the town in different locations. And just as an FYI for critical infrastructure like pump station, the tops of pump stations, we've been using the standard of 18 inches of freeboard plus another 1.25 feet, another 15 inches for the median sea level rise projection based on DENREC's latest. So that's like 33 inches above the floodplain.
Good point. Yeah.
Yeah. So just think about those. things.
And Brett's gonna be at the meeting,
Yeah, he'll be there.
so maybe we can discuss it with him because he
Yeah,
had a
yeah.
question on
He's
that.
a great source for that.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks, Charlie. Appreciate that. We've identified the assets that we feel are going to be, could be affected by sea level rise and global warming in general. So that's going to be, there's a list of, I don't know, 30 or 40 items, including the water tank, of course, and the treatment plant, everything. So we have a whole list of things that we feel might be impacted by that. Next week, we're going to be trying to tie down the wind load to use for going forward because of the more intense and more frequent storms. And Brent Jet is going to be speaking to that, and we'll discuss that. And if we can come to a consensus, we'll settle that at the next meeting. So that's where we are. The things we're going to be looking at going forward, we're going to be looking at preparing a mitigation plan. We may begin discussing that going forward, an overall mitigation plan for the BPW. Of course, we'll have to work closely with the city and the county and the state and so forth. So we're going to start discussions on that at the next meeting if there's time in the agenda. And then we're also going to be talking at some point in the future about recommending policies or programs for the city to accept, such as supporting solar and DVs and AMIs and water conservation and that type of thing. So that's a topic we'll be bringing up at some future meeting. So that's where we are at this point. I think things are going well. We have a very good committee, and having Candace added to it this past time, it was a real plus. She's sharp, as everybody knows. So she'll be a great addition. Thank you, Mayor, for asking her. That's all I had.
Yeah, I mean, the mitigation team, I mean, the amount of in-depth knowledge they have and digging that they're doing is really amazing. So I think we're going to wind up with a good profile of what the risks are to the various assets. So, okay. On that note, Inframark.
Good afternoon, board. In the executive summary for this month, nothing has really changed. We're still red in the headworks and red at the pump stations. Everything else is in the green. As far as new information, well, this is somewhat old. We're still continuing to utilize the dewatering dumpster and still continuing to see positive effects from that in the UF cleaning, which we just finished today, the deragging of train 3. So that will complete full cleaning for the year, and train 3 will be going back online as of tomorrow due to the late hour, which it was completed today.
Can you talk a little bit about what you found on train 3?
Sure. So basically, train 3's condition is improved. Instead of there being about a foot of ragging that was seen early on in the cleanings, we're now diminished to about 4 inches worth of ragging at the top. And that is due to the removal of those raggings, which will continue to be improved as the headworks work moves forward. So, and then also earlier this month, we did receive the Classic T 8 rotating assemblies for pump station 3. However, after further inspection, those assemblies were not proper for the cases that we have due to a change in product. We have received a quote for new housing, and we are in the process of working with Austin to determine what the best course of action is and most cost-effective action moving forward in regards to continuing that.
Can you explain to the board where the ball got dropped on getting rotating elements that didn't fit the casings?
So in that line, there was a 2-year period where they had transitioned away from the units that we have versus the newer style, which are a front end mounting unit, which is what they had expected, even though they had received all of the serial numbers and were forewarned of that possible discrepancy. We received assurances that it was correct. However, unfortunately, upon receiving it, it was not. So we caught that as early as possible and are trying to seek all of our options at this point.
And they were priced out through Fremar.
Correct.
Yeah.
In addition, regarding pump station 3, Sprigg had completed the hydraulic excavation, and the bypass valve installation work is tentatively scheduled for the week of the 12th, following the holiday, and they have received all of their parts and pieces and should be ready to work, weather permitting. We still have a full staff of 5 full-time employees and 1 part-time employee at the facility. And some of the projects up and coming, I already mentioned, the bypass installation plan for pump station 3, which will give us some added security as we move forward with deciding how to proceed at that station. Also, we have just received a tentative schedule in regards to the diesel tank monitoring equipment. They should be out to do their initial assessment, looking roughly around the 8th of September, coming out to do that on-site inspection for planning how to proceed forward from there. Also, we have met on the 6th with Nickel Electric to go over the conductor testing, the mag meter testing, and getting quotes for that. Also quotes for breaker testing and a assessment for changing out the sump pumps in the electrical manholes. And then also on the 23rd, we also met with Lywood for a secondary option for the same electrical test to be done.
So you say you still have the staff of 5.
Correct.
Is it the same employees? So is there any
Yes.
transition?
Yes, no changes. And in regards to our effluent quality, we are still well below our permit limitations. However, we are more in the middle of that range that's allowable with a total nitrogen of a 5.2 total nitrogen.
Is that typical for this time of year?
Yeah, with the heat fluctuations, it causes the microorganisms to change their adaptivity. Plus, we've had a lot of rain, which has a tendency to quickly cool the tanks, which affects their working.
So that's just normal.
It's just common swings. As long as we don't exceed or come close, we are in very good shape.
Sure.
Thank goodness for bugs.
Right. And
So-
that's all that I have at the moment. If there's any other questions.
So I see the Suez reports still aren't in here. Do we still have connectivity issues?
That's
with
correct.
Suez?
We have restored the connectivity issue as of last week. Josh got that all squared away and confirmed that they are receiving the data at this point.
Okay.
It was a lead time issue from Suez. We ended up getting it. I poked and prodded and we got a FedEx number, so.
So if we look at the liquid hauled out, it's, 56,000 gallons. How many truckloads is that and how much does a truckload cost us? And then my next question is going to be.
CDI bill anywhere from $2,500 to $3,500. They started charging for fuel too. So it used to not exist. Now there's a fuel surcharge of $5.
Are there belt dryers that we can buy? Or are they back ordered or hard to get to or expensive or?
We can. It's Charlie 250 to 350,000 for a belt filter press.
I'd be curious what the With the finance committee, maybe figure what the payback is on something like that. I gotta believe it's really pretty strong.
It's,
What about the Rehoboth plant? I mean, is that, weren't we were gonna send a lot of stuff through to the Rehoboth plant?
no,
Now, the solid waste are going to the county.
yeah,
Yeah.
we're holding solids.
Oh, yeah, okay.
This is basically anytime when you have like more than you can offload off the digester. You would
Oh,
pump
okay.
directly from the digester.
So this is an overflow that we're taking care of.
No, it's not an overflow. It's just when you normally would pour, if you come into an event where you have rain that kind of
Oh, I
sets
see
you
what you're
back.
saying. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Maybe
The
the
bed,
county
in other words, what
conversation.
the beds can't handle.
Yeah, we talked to the
Yeah.
county as well because originally we had the belt filter press and then we went back there, but then they needed it turned around in like 2 weeks. So it didn't,
Okay, got
it
it.
didn't align.
Any other questions? All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rich.
So the president's report. And I think some of this is going to be jointly with Austin. So we have a meeting with the hospital set up for September 9th. And that's to go and get a tour of what they're doing on their side. They've got posters for no wipes in the pipes, and to get a look at their facility. And then we're going to take them on a tour of our facility. So, the hospital has apologized. It's summer and there's been a lot of things going on, but that's finally going to happen. Battery storage project. So, I think everyone knows we had tabled that because of the last set of bids. Well, due to the IRA, the federal legislation, and some other things that have changed at the federal level, it appears that the playing field has completely changed. And we have been reached out to by almost every one of the original battery vendors. Plus, I got a call from one of the battery vendors I met at APPA, all wanting to talk about the changed landscape and the possibilities. So we will set that up for the future. But there is, a potential that there may be monies available or subsidies or regulations changing that might help that along.
Have you had a chance to look at it to see what it looks like?
I have, but it's
It's been up and down so many times.
right. What is out there right now is so fuzzy. And they're still trying to write the regulations to implement the law. And that's why it's important that we talk to some of the battery vendors to see what their interpretation is, because they're the ones who are saying that the market has changed and that they think that, it's worthwhile rediscussing.
Wow, wow. Because
So-
the EV items in that budget are so convoluted. I mean, it's almost impossible to buy a car.
Having one on order, I will
Yeah.
tell you, I still don't know what it means.
Yeah. So
Yes.
hopefully the battery thing's not as convoluted as the EV issue.
No, because there's actually less written about it, but there is, so anyway, we'll set something up. We're not going to do it until probably till late September, given everything else that's going on.
That'd be
But,
great news if it happened.
hopefully. And then, do you want to touch on AMI?
Do you want me to go to the general managers and then?
Yeah, I guess
We'll
we should.
do
We'll go
everything.
to the general managers and then.
So project wise, the Savannah Road Sewer Extension, we had a progress meeting yesterday. It was basically a walkthrough, very minor punch list. Project ended up very good. Road looks good. Obviously, that was in preparation for the Donovan Smith, which I'll just prelude and say that we went to closing last week for the Donovan Smith project. So it's one step closer, moving towards that direction. Working on final permitting as we speak. Hopefully go out to bid sometime middle to end of September. So that a little bit of positive news there. The Politown Road project, again, fairly well substantial completion. There's still concrete collars that need to be done, a couple punch list items. But that won't happen until after the holiday weekend. Moving on, Kim took the lead on the audit, which is going to be presented today by Kim and Kayla. And then just some highlighted items. We met with Senator Carper to go over the Army Reserve once again. So I think it was a successful meeting. We'll wait and see, what comes about of it.
And just on that was a joint meeting with the city.
Mhm.
So Andrew and Anne Marie and Eleanor were there, Austin and I. And this one was actually, I thought, much better than, or more in depth than the Senator Coons meeting. So
We shall see. We have the meeting scheduled with the Director of Facilities with BB. So that'll be a good day. We have the whole day to ourselves, so we'll be able to view theirs. They'll be able to view ours. We'll sit down and talk on a path forward. But it was nice that they started to incorporate marketing internally for their staff members and for the public. Without, we provided them stuff, but that's their own.
This is theirs.
Yeah, that is theirs. So they provided that to us. So that's really good. It's a good partnership that we're working towards.
Other hospitals I've been in have things in each room.
Mhm.
Do you know whether they're gonna do that type of thing? At the toilet, they have things.
Not sure, but that's something that we'll
Yeah,
probably discuss when we're walking through.
I was told by someone who went through the hospital this morning that they saw the posters.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, it'd be nice to have something at the toilet
Yeah.
where people put them.
We met with AC Schultes to discuss the options for well 3. So we had it on the agenda as a topic. I think there needs to be a little bit more discussion before we make a commitment. We had 4 different options on the table. And then those options actually had sublet options. But we're talking about replacing with existing, replacing with a larger casing, or relining the existing well. But we want to make sure that we make the right decision hydraulically out at the plant so that we don't run into any issues down the road. And that it kind of coordinates with the water tower project that we're working on, which we have a planning grant out for. So we're working diligently with GMB and working through all the data that makes sense. And then working on kind of where Tom was going, the energy stakeholders group continue to meet. There's a big push in expanding distributed energy. And because of that, just to give a lay of the land, we've discussed AMI in the past. Currently, the members of DMEC, there's only 2 members that don't have AMI. It's us and Clayton. We have met with Dawn because obviously with the Indian River plant getting to the point where there was a discussion of shutting down and then PGM getting involved, the costs for offletting that or not having it shut down and keeping it there to essentially be stagnant unless called upon is now being pushed to basically all the members on the East Coast, isolated in this general area that expands into the Virginia, basically Marlborough area. And
So is there a targeted date on when it might go down, or
right
under what
now
criteria? It's down? Okay.
it's 4. Good.
No, I thought they were spending.
I'd heard that as well, so.
It's 4 to 5 years until the transmission line gets rebuilt. So the plant necessarily doesn't shut down. It just sits there in like a cold start.
Yeah.
But it's a coal fire plant. So for them to get a call for them to be called upon and to start is, 48 to 72 hours.
So it's not actually operating, it's just sitting there ready to operate.
It's just,
unless called upon.
Okay.
it's not in hot standby, it's in cold standby. And like you said, we're paying for a resource that probably will never run.
And that's getting passed down. And a lot has to do with the ability to build out transmission projects. So that kind of lays the landscape of where the power market is absolutely insane. Power supply costs are up and down, but right now they're trending very high compared to recent years because of natural gas prices. You have coal fire plants going out. You have to make up that demand somewhere. So just as an idea, as it expands, people are getting more creative with rates. That's where you're pushing towards time of use, pushing towards demand charges. Complex rates do require the ability to implement them. And AMI is one of those things that is utilized because of being able to have the data that you can see how much is being used during X time and charge for what's being used at X time. I've talked with Scott Lynch again, and he would be more than happy to come back down and kind of spark that conversation back up again. But that's where it stands.
Well, it's been a financial thing. I mean, you pointed it out several times. And so
I really
I
going
think it-
going through our financial plan again and going through our what's in and what's out of scope kind of stuff. Maybe needs something we need to go through in an upcoming board meeting just to kind of figure it out.
financial. We're gonna dump everything in your lap.
I think we do need to go through that list and try to see what's, I mean, if the batteries come in, if the AMI, a lot of things get changed around. And I know we talked about the cost on Pilot Town Road. And I was trying to figure out in the last meeting, I asked for some kind of an assessment on what we had it in the budget at and what it ended up at.
So the original contracted amount was 3.66 million and the work orders are just, or
Change
change
orders.
orders are just over $1 million. But the original budget was 2.6 million 2 or 3 years ago in our capital budget. And then it keeps increasing like $1 million each year. So it's another 1.5 million, I think we had for this year.
Yeah, and remember when it was priced out during the strategic plan. When you came out of the strategic plan, there was a discussion of replacing iron pipe. That was a ductile iron pipe. And so the change order was put in place to basically put in a brand new PVC line instead of jumping over to the existing ductile iron line. That was a very large change order, which probably encompassed, I think, 2/3 of the change orders that existed. It was probably more than that, actually. So
Because with costs being so high now, demand for things that we can spend it on being, voluminous, figuring out how to actually do the prioritization, I think is an important thing to do.
I think it's a good decision.
Yep.
I will also add in there, we have the joint BPW and city meeting on Monday at 5 p.m. And then with that ends mine. I'll turn it over.
Where is all the bidding for the headworks? That's really crucial. Where do we stand with that?
So we had a hard time getting the equipment data from Sherwood Logan and Freemeyer, but we finally got it. So all that's mechanical design is done. We're waiting on the Keystone electrical design. We should have it out for bid next month.
Okay, that'd be
Yeah.
great because hopefully that'll solve a lot of problems, as you know.
Oh, it's going to help a lot
Yeah.
tremendously. Yeah.
Thank
Hey,
you.
you can see that now. I was going to say, because they're using the screening dumpster,
Yeah.
and that's already increased
Yeah.
from when it wasn't in place.
Yeah,
It just took a lot of twists and turns along the design path. We're going to, at one time we were talking about, bypassing flow from the reactors up to the headworks. And,
Remember that.
we went all through that and there was a bunch of other things too, but we're almost there now to have it out for bid.
that'd be great.
Yeah.
Josh?
I'll just jump right into the security report right away. At the main office, we've seen pretty significant uptick in creditable threats on it almost 7 times. So that's certainly a concern. However, I'm going to come back to that in a second because I think there's a little bit more to that, and I'm going to explain in a moment. At the wastewater plant, we've seen tremendous increase in attack. our numbers previously, where's my dashboard? Sorry. Should have that handy. We are up to, typically we hover right around 14 to 18 credible,
Easy for you to say.
yeah, threats. Now
Per-
we're
per-
seeing the last month,
Per month? Is that a
yeah,
monthly?
per month. This is the last 30 days. Now we're seeing 2,089. So a significant uptick. And it is all coming from one source. So we are combating that. These are all stopped. So these are just something to keep an eye on. So that's what
There's no
we're,
Any way
idea.
to find out what who the source is?
Yeah,
I know exactly where they're coming from. And if I, it's foreign. And the moment I say it, you guys will all understand. So you guys can fill in the blank.
Well, but I mean, do we report that to the federal government?
It's something that I've considered having a discussion with CISA, but that's not something we haven't been negatively affected. These are just attempts. So they've
Well-
been trying, but we've been blocking.
No, I understand that. So
We've been busy,
we're
but-
doing our job, but I think somebody in the federal government, I know is tracking and keeping a database on where these things are coming from. So
Correct.
maybe they can turn around and say, okay, turn it over to our hackers and go after them.
Well, the company that we utilize for our firewalls, they also report to the same entities.
Okay.
So this isn't just me telling you.
No. So
they
ours
have these
goes to
numbers as
them
well.
and they're keeping it.
Right.
Data. Okay, good.
is why.
Correct.
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
reporting specifically on us, our numbers. However, this is a global or a national, I guess it's global too. A global issue. So it's very active. Good news is our other two locations are very moderate. So I'm okay with the numbers, much more stagnant. Jumping over to our emails, we are still getting credible threats. We're down to 8 this month. Previously, we were at 16. So we're kind of hovering right around that number. And again, we're just continuing to monitor. Now, jumping over to my general update, the new help desk tech, he is a specialist. He's completed all of his required training to maintain his position, such as NIMS. We've been working on creating documentation for encryption for our emails. We have certain information that's HIPAA compliant, et cetera. We're trying to make sure that we're staying compliant within that. We're trying to put together a more formal documentation to provide to the end users so that way they can utilize that a little bit more efficiently. We are encrypting on a global scale, but to encrypt specifically from one user to another. That's what we're moving for. We're also staying compliant with our MFA or multi-factor authentication, which is what our insurance is requiring to maintain our cyber policy. We are making some updates to that, and we'll be deploying that hopefully within the next 30 days. I've been working with the IT assets to get a detailed, not just an inventory, but also cost forecasting, et cetera. And I'm working with Kim. So that way she has less of a surprise later. We're also considering, currently our phones are with Verizon. We are on a government plan. We are considering an alternative. There's a company called FirstNet. They're based with AT&T. They are AT&T, but specifically they are geared for governments and first responders. So it really stems from 9/11 when all of the cell phones went down. You couldn't make a phone call. This company is actually just a spinoff of AT&T, and what they'll do is they'll clear their entire network, and then only people that are on the FirstNet network will have access to respond. Basically, they kick all the consumers off. And we are entertaining that.
So similar to what Sussex County EMS uses, just on a different frequency.
Correct. They're on a 900 frequency. The calls and text would, for this company is based on a 700 megahertz frequency, which it is an older frequency, but it has its perks.
Reason we're looking at it is because one, it's just looking at it from a competitive nature.
Correct.
But two, if you get into a stance where we had the tabletop, is that we have 2 satellite phones on order. But if you take priority with FirstNet, you also have the ability, if it comes up faster than say Verizon or whatever it may be, we have the ability to have that.
Yeah, so the consumers will, like you and I personally, our cell phones wouldn't have service. However, these ones in theory should. Also working on currently, and if I hope I'm right on this, currently most cell phones are working on, I think it's a 1400 megahertz band. And at a 700 megahertz band, we should have a broader reach. Even though it's a lower frequency, it gives us more reach. So hopefully in those dead spots, Cape Shores, New Road, et cetera, where we hit some of those dead spots, we're hoping that we'll make up that difference and we'll have service. We are looking to purchase a couple of test phones. They're very, very cheap. They're promotion, they're $1 right now. And then they told us that we only have to pay for the service that we're utilizing. So I'm hoping that for less than a couple $100, we can have this tested within a month. And then we can.
What is the phone? What's
It's an iPhone.
It's an iPhone.
iPhone 12.
It's just a different provider. And it all piggybacks off of AT&T's 5G. So the data would still be 5G, just as consumers, but it's the texting and the calling that's on the different frequency.
So it's too good to be true.
Right.
What are we signing up for, a long-term high price contract or something? What's the?
No, actually, their prices are very competitive, extremely, because they have government funding, federal funding. They're able to keep the prices very, very competitive. Even with Verizon and AT&T's newer, I think pretty competitive prices that they're offering to consumers, this should be more desirable. So ultimately, I'm hoping to save money in this process as well. And it is a month to month. There is no long-term contract. Moving on, we are about a third of the way through with our cyber audit. So we are being tested, and that's kind of loop me back to my security report. I feel very confident that a portion of those numbers that I was reporting on for the primary or for the main office and for the wastewater plant, partially or up due to this audit. Because they are essentially doing some of that. But I don't believe that it is exclusively them. Moving on to the last one I have is, before I start getting clicked, our .gov. Actually, moments before I came in here, the .gov registrar just sent me an email confirming that we've submitted everything that we need to, and we're awaiting final approval. So this is very, very good.
Good.
Any questions?
Scary report.
Mhm.
It
Good.
is, but it's again, something that we're constantly monitoring, us personally in-house and in combination with other agencies as well. So, thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Sharon?
So we have a couple events coming up. Public Power Week is coming up, October, the first week in October, the 2nd through the 8th. So this year we wanted to kind of get out there. We will be doing the farmer's market on the If any board member would like to join some employees out there, we're going to be giving out efficiency smart light bulbs, just getting things out there. I think even though it's Power Week, we could probably put some no wipes in the pipes, just get all the information out there for that. We are also going to be doing like an outreach to let everybody know on Facebook, website. We have YouTube, so you can see all the past videos. We're going to be doing a giveaway, a basket of efficiency smart items. And then we will also like to do a customer survey. I know we've tried it in the past. We've not had great results. We can do it anonymously, or if they want to be submitted for another prize, they could put their name in the basket, and then hopefully that would maybe entice them to submit the survey. The other event that'll be coming up in December is the Lewes Lights. Christian Mullins reached out to us, and he is interested in maybe the board members selecting the winners, being a judge this year, and also offering a prize, maybe a discount on their December bill, something like that. But just, we're going to kick around some ideas. So just keep all that in mind.
And with the public power, one of the things that DMAC does is part of, our whole package is they do a billboard.
Yes.
So
Oh, that's right.
yeah, so George, he doesn't know it yet because we just told him we were taking this picture, but his face is going to be on a billboard.
that right?
Yes, yes. It'll be on Savannah Road as you're headed towards Route 1.
How about the radio?
I
I don't think they did the radio station this year, or at least she hasn't contacted me about it yet.
So where's the billboard going to be?
It's going to be on Savannah Road on the right-hand side as you're coming into.
That's great. That is great.
About where in Savannah? About where?
It is, I think it's on the right-hand side as you're coming around.
No, if you're headed towards Route 1, it is going to be on the left-hand side, and it's right next to those brown buildings. There used to be like a LabCorp or something in there. I don't remember what it
Oh,
was,
yeah.
but it's right there.
It's a realtor. Is that the one that is the realtor's on now? He's been there forever, though.
Yeah, it's a little bit past the CVS.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, I think it is where the, what's his name's.
'Cause he's been there forever. I thought he maybe owned that. That's great.
Okay. All right, moving on to item 10, the audit report. So, Kim, you want to?
Sure.
Item 8. Is that it? Am I wrong? Audit report, whatever number it is. Oh,
Well, yeah, this,
I would
Item
let
8.
you guys take the lead on
These,
the audit, but I'm
these
in the
numbers here,
audience if
they-
you need me.
You picked them up before we did the amendment.
yeah.
You hear us?
We can hear you.
Good
Hear
deal.
So you should have two things before you. One is a letter and the other one is your financial statements. And again, I'm Kim Stang from Zelenkofske Axelrod. I have Kayla DeMar with me as well. And we are an integral part of your audit team. We would like to thank Kim and Austin. It was another year, a great audit. And the letter that you have in front of you is our letter to you. Really going over the results. You're responsible as the board over the financial statements. You're responsible for that fiscal oversight. We are your independent auditors, and we really had no issues this year. If you go through, in that letter, we identified there's some significant risks that we have. There were really no unusual transactions or uncorrected financial statement misstatements. So overall, the audit was a great audit. And I'm going to let Kayla talk to you a little bit about the financial statements themselves and kind of the results of those. So I'll turn it over to her.
So looking at your financial statements, starting with page 1, that's your opinion. It was a clean opinion with no modifications, so that's always a good thing. You may notice that the format of the opinion changed slightly. That's related to a new auditing standard. All the pieces are pretty much still in there. It's just a little bit of a different order. This year, you guys adopted GASB statements number 89, 98, and 99. None of them had an effect on your financial statements. Looking at the statements themselves on page 10, you'll see that there was an increase in your unrestricted net position and an increase in your cash. These are always good things and good indicators of a healthy financial position. Flipping then to page 39, that's your report on internal control over financial reporting. Again, this was a clean opinion with no findings, so that's always a great thing. Like Kim said, overall, this was a very smooth audit. It was a great transition with Kim and Austin. They're doing a great job and we appreciate all their help with everything. There are a few accounts that are carrying some similar balances between the years. None of them are material, but that's a project Kim was going to look into cleaning up going forward. The new software you guys had implemented seems to be working well for you guys, and it really made the audit process easier. So we appreciate everything, and overall, it was a great audit.
Do you guys have any questions for us?
Not necessarily for you guys, but the two things that jumped out at me, and particularly for the mitigation committee, you know, the net investments on capital assets. I mean, while this is page 5, is not indicative of replacement cost, but it is a benchmark of how much capital capital assets we have. One of the things we had talked about was re-upping our replacement value costs, totally outside of the audit, but so we understand where we stand from a reserve policy and such.
So one of the things that Kim and I are doing is we're going through literally everything and trying to identify what the current depreciation is and replacement costs are, and trying to modify that to bring it better in line with today's standard, today's market. So it's an ongoing one.
Now, that would tend to be going up, obviously.
Yeah.
Which is part of our rate. So do you anticipate at the end of this, we're going to be in another rate adjustment? Because we've had a big rise over the past, year or so.
Well, we've had a lot of projects that were self-funded too, but we're also looking at different ways. Like one of the things was entertaining different, pollution insurance and pollution and flood insurance, because right now we're self-insured through our cash reserve policy.
Right.
So we're holistically, and it's going to basically go through, and I believe it's going to go through the finance committee, is really taking a deeper dive into the financials, trying to understand the depreciation, how we did it in the past, and is that still relevant in today's world? Because that's where a lot of what Kim really, and I'm putting it all on Kim because she has done a terrific job, but she has dug into these financials to a degree that I personally believe has not been done before. And with that, she's identified things that, we talked today, there was equipment that was depreciated at 60 years. Yeah, like a backhoe cab from 1983 that was still being depreciated that we don't own. That's just one of those things.
And needs to be retired.
Yeah.
There's a little list that I'm accumulating of assets that need to be retired that we no longer have.
But like the new truck that we just ordered, okay, that's like $300,000, right?
Mhm.
Do we have an escrow fund for that truck, for its predecessor in there that it's going to be paying for this?
Yes, and that's where that's what
Is that what
started.
you're trying to?
Yes, because what we're noticing is like that bucket truck that we depreciated that used to cost $150,000, now it costs $300,000.
So we have to put a bigger chunk every month into that
Yeah.
pot.
That's
Yeah.
the new, that's what we're slowly but surely we're getting there.
And if everything's going up 9%, are we going to have to raise rates to compensate for that?
It's one that I think as we progress, we'll be able to get a
It'll
better
be
idea.
reassessed, especially looking at capital budget as well.
So how much was in the bucket for that we could take out, that we put away for the
For,
previous truck to replace the one we're replacing? Was it anywhere near 300,000?
it would be Red's truck. I'd have to go back and look at the
Yeah,
number.
I don't.
I mean,
don't
I
know
can't
the exact
imagine it
number.
was, but I just wondered how directly do they respond to
How close to the
compare to
depreciation
yeah,
of the
that-
was.
that's what you're doing. Yeah.
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 Great. All right. Thank you.
The other question, and it's not really materially significant, but we've talked about it before, on page 6, the stormwater utilities in the red. And, once again, it's not a major sum of money, but we had talked about, have we looked at what this is going to be with the new rate structure?
Well, this wouldn't have been taken. We
No,
haven't
no, this
projected
was
it.
last year. I realized,
Yeah.
but going forward, I assume this will not be an issue then.
No, I don't. It'd be pretty close. The one thing on that same page that you're looking at, just to note, is that the change in fair market value of investments, that's a pretty significant number,
Yes.
$2 million. Mike? Yes. It was actually included in that whole audit.
I didn't see it. No.
Okay, any other questions on the audit?
No, good news.
Well,
Great job.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Very
Right.
good. And thank you again to Austin and Kim for another great year.
You guys have done a phenomenal job.
Yeah, all the way
Yeah.
around.
Thank you guys very much, and thank you, Kim.
Thank you all.
So we removed item 11, which was, well, it's old 9, current 11.
Okay, well. Old 9 is where I am, and that's all.
Old 10, item 12 is the purchase of a temporary generator for pump station.
He's gonna drag this out. You know.
Too quick, you picked it up. too early.
All right, so this was the discussion. So we came out, it's similar to what the bypass pump discussion was. Rich ended up sending me over a quote to purchase the existing Caterpillar generator that's there now. There was a question on whether or not it was sized appropriately at 60 kW being a temporary. There is the possibility of going with a larger one, and that was what came down to being able to power both pumps at the same time. Currently, the one that's there is the biggest size that they have in their fleet, being the fleet company that has it there. So that would be our only option if we purchase that temp generator. I had asked Rich if that generator would work at other locations. He knows he 100% confirmed it would work for 4 and 8. There would still need to be some investigating for the others.
For both pumps or just one pump at those stations?
I believe the way that it's set up right now, the question is not entirely sure as of right now, because we wanted to actually get a temporary generator that was sized the same as what we're proposing to put in there, which was I believe 100 kW, which is what Scott Getchell and Keystone were working on. But as it stands right now, what they came back with being the contract or the rental company said that this was the largest one that they have in their fleet that they could.
So they're proposing we buy the used one that's been on our
Yes, but
property.
to remind you, the one thing that's unique here is that we have a bypass pump that's there as well that we purchased, which is a Godwin. That pump station has bypass capability. So really at 4, our assurance is that we have the ability to put a bypass pump there because it's diesel run anyway. So if you lose power to the station, you could put the Godwin pump there, and it would serve as similar to what the temporary generator would be. So just putting it back in the back of your mind is that if you would like, we can go and take a deeper dive into each one of the pump stations to see if the 60 kW can serve all of them or how many of them they could be served.
And, so, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
And the diesel powered pump alleviates all the rest of the electrical risks, switchgear, transformers, whatever. So it actually is a more reliable option. But there are ones where we don't have bypass lines in. So, and I'm going to suggest we can continue discussing this, but we don't make a decision because with our recently, or we're going to discuss it, agreement with the county, this is something that potentially that we would not need to buy.
Because of their transportable generators?
Yes. and transportable backup diesel pumps. So
Potential buying power as well.
Yeah,
if needed, but they could buy a potential,
Yeah.
so there's more discussions that needs to go on under the mutual aid
Agreed.
relative to that.
so we're gonna table this?
Yeah, unless there's more discussion on the idea, but the actual purchasing, I would suggest we don't go forward with at this point. We wait and put it on September's agenda.
I already have it on an item.
So $1,768.68 is how much we spend a month
Correct.
on pump station 4 every month.
Or the generator.
Well, it'd be good to have a view of our total backup generators or pumps for the entire systems. I mean, how the smaller ones, we could have small portable generators or pumps. You know, if the county's gonna bring them in, what that would mean to us. It'd be interested to see
I got one in my
Oh.
garage I'll rent.
what do you charge? I don't know
Okay.
what trouble that would be. It shouldn't be too much. I wouldn't.
We can,
Because a lot of them, the same generator can be pulled from site to site.
yeah, we can do our best to kind of put a
Yeah.
collection together.
Okay, moving on then, old 11, new 13. Pole attachment.
All right,
Robin,
several months ago, the board reviewed and approved a pole attachment license agreement. I think if I can pass it, I think it's all. In that agreement, what's being passed around is Exhibit A. It's a schedule of fees.
That was included in the agreement.
That's all included in the agreement. At the time, as you'll see on the sheet, there's an application fee. There was no fee assigned to that time of approval. What we have is we've been in contact with several contractors. They're looking to come on board. AT&T is looking to possibly put right now, they've got permits into the building department for 3 wireless facilities on poles down in the beach area. And a company named Chantel is, they're a fiber company, looking to possibly put some string fiber on our poles. But we do not have an application fee to charge them to get the process started. So that's what we're kind of looking at to kind of get them on board. We need to come up with a fee to let them go ahead and submit the paperwork. I've been in contact with several municipalities that are part of DMAC. Having a hard time getting responses back from people, but the ones I have, most of them do not have a separate pole attachment agreement. Things are covered under what the franchise agreements. Seaford has one, and I think Municipal Service Commission from Newcastle has one.
We know where these poles are going to be with these new attachments
Yeah,
on
that's
them
good.
and how invasive.
I know where the wireless ones are going, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they
Is the city
submit.
tied into this at all, Mayor?
Well,
On wireless, yes.
Chantel, they're gonna, in our workshop
Yeah.
next week, they're gonna make a pitch there.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
but
there's,
I think they're gonna be stringing wire, they're gonna be stringing fiber on the poles like Comcast. So that's hard to say, but the wireless facilities are a little different because this is a new territory.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be antennas on poles with. We have to put meters on the poles because there's gonna be units down there, but
We got somebody's attention.
but the review of that has to go through the building
Yeah.
department in the city. We just have to have a license agreement saying that we're going to allow them to put that on our poles.
but
That's,
how does this interact with the wireless 5G that we did several years ago, which has got split jurisdiction because if it's on buildings or, it's the cities, and if it's on our poles, it's us.
that's the whole thing, because that what came about was a two-part review process. If it's had anything to do with wireless facilities, the city got involved, but we got involved if they were putting them on our poles.
Right.
And just to clarify, when you say we, there's the board versus the city, because
No,
Yeah, I was gonna say. We've
Touche.
been there, and done that, right?
No, what I mean by that is in terms of is it something that the planning commission looked at and whatnot? Because from the board's perspective, the pole attachment agreement is our role in that process, not our cooperative process. The board's pole attachment agreement is the board's function. The zoning piece is the city's function.
Right, but is that?
So is
under
this
that
for
agreement?
5G? Is this what we're talking about?
This is
Wireless
to put
attachment for
anything
5G?
in the polls. Anything at all in the polls. This is the application would need to be filled out. The only thing that's being
Who's
discussed,
applying for it?
anybody. If Comcast.
Oh,
wants to
you're okay.
authorize it,
That's
yeah.
Oh,
okay.
anyway,
The gen-
regulated by the FCC.
This is a general.
Yes.
Yeah. Right now, we have two. Right now, I mean, again, we have Comcast that are already has an agreement from way back that there was no. it was
Right, I
just,
know.
No, Verizon.
general,
We went
and
off-
We
we
have
went
fiber
through that
that
already.
which was done in 15. Their contract is a little bit better than what the Comcast one was.
Mhm.
but-
It's more recent. It was 2015.
Yeah,
Right, okay.
but
This discussion today is simply to set an application. So if somebody comes to us and says, we're gonna submit, and that's what Robin's probably getting to, so I'm not gonna spoil it, is that he's reached out to different other communities that have a fee for applying. We are not going through and setting all of these terms because I don't see that happening until somebody actually applies. But at this point in time, this is just so that people can actually submit something to us, and it gives us the ability to review and be compensated for the review time that it takes to go through this.
Okay, I got it.
when I did talk to Charles Anderson, city manager for Seaford, their fee's $100 for an application fee. I was waiting on a call back from Scott Bloomquist from Municipal Service Commission, but I've not got back with, he's not got back with yet. So I only have one to go off of. In the fiber tech agreement we had.
One question. How long ago was that $100 set up? Is this a year or 5 years?
I don't, I just actually talked to him the other day and he said the $100 was still into effect.
But how long has it been in effect? I guess what I'm saying.
I would have to assume it would be the exact same time, assuming you get in trouble, but at the same time that they adopted the pole attachment agreement that Max Walton worked with DMEC on, which would have been probably the 2018, 2019 timeframe.
That sounds awfully cheap, I bet. But how much time is involved and effort on our behalf about this? Is there much paperwork? Is there, when you could spend, $100 worth of time very quickly, in today's world? Is there much on our end that we have to do?
It's been a while, so we don't really have a benchmark to how much time it's going to take, and it's probably going to depend on each one of the applications that comes forward. You may have one that wants to put it on 150 poles, and which is a little bit more than just 5 poles. So that's.
But that goes more in play into what this is to make ready engineering fee. So somebody stringing cable on a pole is going to be less than like what we have to do for the AT&T for the wireless, because we're going to have to run meters on those poles and possibly have to move some of our stuff.
Would that be all covered by the $100 or would that be?
No,
That's where to make ready.
That's the make
Yes,
ready.
yeah, that's where we don't want to, but it's noted in there to be determined, because once we get the application, then we can review it and say, okay, it's not going to need nothing to let them do this,
But you
or
don't-
it's going to be 5 hours for us to move something.
But when,
Yeah, the
when-
$100 is just for them to send us an application, and we have to then look and see whether we want to do it at all.
so
Yeah, okay.
no field work or any.
No, because it
Not
appears to be
much
the
office
field work
work at all.
is involved, is in when you get into the base of it, how much we're going to charge for the attachment per year and to make ready.
So maybe
fee.
it's just sending your response letter or something
Yeah,
like
I
that.
think it's just to get the process started so they can submit the paperwork. And there is going to be a little bit of admin time to get the process started.
But as I remember, and this has been a while ago, the wireless agreement that split jurisdiction put the onus for engineering on whoever was applying. Is that correct? I mean, for structural stability of the pole.
They submit the paperwork that the building department got from the AT&T. There's extensive pages. There's a lot of information on those pages. I've got a copy of it, but I've not really looked in detail to it. It's more going to be from, I'd say from Rhett's end. But they've officially not submitted anything to us because we don't have an application fee or to tell them to go ahead and start the process.
Well,
But
that
in
would
that case-
fall under the engineering make ready,
Yeah,
because I mean,
correct.
you know, if it's a standard wireless and a standard pole, it's one thing, but otherwise, and depending on what else is on the pole.
Yes,
So,
that's the thing. We had one of that is roughly around 9 Rhode Island, I think, is one of the poles. And Rhett went out and looked at it, and we have underground wires there, and Rhett said, I don't want to put it on that pole. It's just going to take us too much to get that pole for what they want to put on the pole, and ask them to move it to another pole. And they agreed to do so.
My only point is $100 isn't much, and
Yeah,
make
right.
sure you really think through what has to be done, because these are expensive facilities they're putting in, and $100 is
Yeah.
a drop in the bucket.
And I don't know if as much as the, say, the Shentel or the FiberTech type or Comcast is as much as what it might, I mean, I guess the application fee is basically the same now. It's just the other portions of it that can be adjusted per application on what's being asked.
Because ultimately this goes back to the board and gets hashed out and then gets approved. So
But what are you asking for now? Do you want us to just say $100 and why don't we just do that and set up an application fee or what?
So we wanted to get this back to you so that you could have a chance to ask questions, digest it. If you would like us to reach out and get further from Scott Bloomquist or other members within DMEC, we can do it. It's just there are people that are applying, and in it, it says that we would have an application fee. And so that's what Robin had started. He had reached out, and so far he's gotten $100 is for the.
And you think $100 is enough just to look at the application?
I don't think it's unreasonable.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's my personal opinion.
well, then,
I'd be willing to do it.
Do what?
Look at it for $100.
yeah.
I'm being a little facetious.
And you're not cheap, I know.
I'm not cheap at all. Frugal.
Accept credit cards?
Agree. I'll let Bob, do you need a motion?
I think we probably do need a motion for this, right?
I would say with what we have from for that $100. And that's the only figure I have to go by.
You guys reserve the right to get smarter.
That's exactly.
And so the $100 is not forever. It's for the next 3 months or the first 5 people that apply, or
Or until we get more information, come back to the board and
so that's clear when they,
Yeah.
The thing is,
it's announced, this is
at this time,
change.
it's, yep. If you come back in 6 months for 2 more polls, it might be now $300 application.
the thing is that's been the problem going in the past, because what we charged for what's on our polls now is it should have been raised years ago. How long has it been there? You looking at it,
1983.
See, that's the same thing. The FiberTech one that was done in 15. It talked about an application sheet and a schedule for maps, but we can't find out if we even charge them anything for an application fee in 15.
as big of a pain in the butt that they are to deal with generally, these utilities, they're getting away scot-free on their pole connections.
Well, I'd go for it. And
Okay, so do we have a motion?
I was gonna say-
The TBD you got, which makes sense because you don't know what you need until you got, but the others that have excess, the audit and inspection fees, or that you plan on filling those in, or they're not relevant here?
They will be in the future, because again, that's gonna have to be looked into also. If they want to transfer a pole transfer fee, if they want to do that. There's also spots in here for, if we find an unauthorized attachment. That's something that's good. There's gonna have to be fees put in there. Now, if we want to make that a fixed fee, then that's fine.
I think we've talked about, we would like to see some type of enforcement ability to get them to take things down, the utilities in general. Yeah, about, because we see a lot of stuff hanging from poles that are obviously not in use, and just making the skyline even worse than it is with all the wires.
Different issues. The new agreements cover that. And so obviously, once you sign the new agreement, there is more teeth to address just that concern. On other agreements, it's going to be on a case-by-case basis, depending on what the line is and what the subject agreement is.
Shouldn't maybe some of these fees be on a case by case? Because some polls are easy, some polls are
That's,
difficult. Couldn't we just make it a case by case?
that was the thought. I mean, there's two different thoughts. You can have it fixed and then have somebody apply, but then you have to constantly kind of reiterate that the fee may change based off every application, or you keep it like this. And when you have an application, say it's, what we approved or what the board approved in 2015 may not be the same in 2022.
Yeah.
I think the question that staff is asking is, in order to process the application, they need to know that fee. So what's in front of the board is a request to set the application fee, recognizing that you will see the actual agreement and the actual schedule to approve the fee when those applications come in.
Understand, yeah.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we make it, we have a fee for $100 for submitting an application.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thanks, Robin.
Old 12, new 14. Line of credit. So I think this is Kimberly, Austin, and Mike, but Mike, you wanna?
Sure.
Off?
So this is the prior meeting, the board authorized staff to go forward in pursuing a line of credit. The way this works is when you go through, you submit the paperwork, the application, you get everything set up, you get the stack of documents ready for the loan closing. So we are at that stage of it now, where we are gearing up to quote unquote close on the line of credit. Part of that is documenting the formal board's approval, which is what the resolution that is in front of you here tonight. That resolution is what would then go to the bank to formalize the board's approval of the line of credit consistent with the resolution, and allow us to work with staff and the bank to quote unquote close that line of credit request. Couple things to note, and one thing I've been asked about, and it's come up in the past during the board meeting about the question of whether mayor and city council approval is required. I do want to touch upon that just a little bit. 2 points. The resolution itself specifically calls out the section of the charter under which this application is being approved. And that section is section 414.2. In the BPW charter, borrowing is addressed in section 4.14. It's aptly titled borrowing. Under those, there are many subsections. There are 2 specific subsections that expressly require mayor and city council approval in order to borrow pursuant to those sections. Those are the 2 sections that require mayor and city council approval. What we see often is that section 414.1.1, and that's where the board is borrowing for a specific project and pledging the revenues of that project in order to secure the loan. That does expressly require mayor and city council approval, which is why that process is typically the case. The second instance is where the board is pledging essentially general bonds. Let me find it here. It's 414.3, use of general obligation bonds. When the board is pursuing that requires mayor and city council approval. The other option, which is what we're doing here, which is 414.2, is the board is empowered to borrow temporarily from time to time on anticipated revenues of the board in general to provide for the expenses of maintenance, replacement operation, utility systems, and the like. If the board borrows under 414.2, there are conditions that are expressly in the charter, one of which is there's a limit of how much you can borrow, and it's based on the average revenues in the past year. We are well within that limit. The other is there's an obligation to pay it within 10 fiscal years. The resolution calls that out. And then there's a minimum rate that's called out as well. Again, all that's spelled in the resolution. But when you're borrowing under that section, it does not require mayor and city council approval, which is why this item isn't being forward. But again, that's in the resolution. It's all called out there. I'm happy to answer any questions. This is a resolution, so it's a two-part vote.
So
Can I
We've
ask,
all-
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah,
Can I ask
sure,
a
go
question
ahead.
on that part, though?
Mhm.
The bank that you're getting this from is also satisfied with this reading? Have they gone that far as to look and see if,
Yeah, so
they're okay?
we have, I'll answer it this way.
Mhm.
They have reached out as to whether we have looked into that question. We provided a response. I have not heard anything further from the bank.
Okay, so you're good?
Gonna ask my
All right.
questions.
Well, I mean, we've talked about it before, and so I'll make a resolution and that it's not, how do I say it? It's
So-
not have to be read.
Yep, so
Yep.
the first motion is to read the resolution by title only.
By title, yeah, resolution by title only.
We have a second?
Second.
We have discussion,
Favor?
we have discussion at this point.
Yep, so well, let me read it by title
Okay.
only, then you can have discussion
All right.
before you vote.
Fine.
Which number is this? 5, thank you. Mr. President, members of the board, resolution number 22-005, a resolution of the Board of Directors, of the Board of Public Works of the City of Lewes authorizing a revolving line of credit from Fulton Bank. Mr. President, members of the board, resolution 22-005 has been read by title only and placed before the board for its consideration and adoption. And now you can have discussion.
I think at the previous meeting or one of the previous meetings, we talked about this. And we want to take it back to the finance committee. Has that been done?
This was the
This,
line of credit for the equipment.
This was,
No, this is
This is the
3
second
million
one.
This general line of
This
credit.
is
We
the
did talk about
unsecured
it.
we
line of
approved, we
credit.
approved one and then I thought this
Right.
was deferred.
Mhm.
And
Right.
the thought was this would be something that the
Right.
finance committee would want to look at.
Yes, and Fulton is going to give us a presentation on all of that at our next meeting.
No,
Which is-
I thought, oh.
So
I
the
thought
3 million
Fulton was-
unsecured,
They were giving us a thing on on them doing all of our investments and stuff.
no,
1 second, let's let
the
Kim.
3 million unsecured was unanimous. Let's move forward. And then everything else that was on the list and anything else that they may offer, we defer to the finance committee and they are presenting on the first.
Yes, right.
So why are we approving this tonight?
this is the one that was.
This is,
Oh, this is the one that was first approved.
this is to actually have it in paper for Fulton's lawyers.
This is the one that we
Yeah.
approved.
That's all,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So
thought this
just,
was
so you
second.
are approving the line of credit here
Okay.
tonight. I think what Kim is saying is in the past meeting, the board approved going forward on the line of credit, but there were other items to unpack for the finance.
Right,
Okay,
committee.
that's what I
okay,
was-
now we're,
Richard, that's what I was
now I
thinking.
understand.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
there's a question.
so,
in chat.
so the resolution, motion is out there and seconded.
It's the resolution is in front of the board. There still needs to be a vote to approve it, but you do have a question in the chat.
That's related to item 13,
No.
the new 13. Did you want me to hold that until call to the public? It was a pretty.
I'm sorry, what was it about?
Different agenda item. Previous.
Oh,
Kevin Johnson.
Would you like me to hold that until?
yeah, let's finish up this topic here and then we can.
Just to be clear, we have to approve the resolution first.
Yes, so the
Reading of it
resolution,
first, I'm saying.
No. So the resolution has been read by title only. It is in front of the
Okay.
board. Your next motion is to approve the resolution. The resolution itself is approving the line of
Okay,
credit.
so then I'll make a motion to approve resolution 22-005.
A second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Next item. General discussion on the Sussex County Mutual Aid Agreement.
So this is a continuation of our discussions back in September of 2021. If you can remember, we actually had a meeting where Sussex County was present, more specifically the engineer Hans Medlars, and we had a general discussion about mutual aid between both parties. And so we worked on this agreement several times, and really we came in the last couple months and massaged it to get to where it is today. What we've done is we have it so that it includes the entire encompass both water, wastewater, pump stations. And so this mutual aid agreement really covers all bases in terms of water and wastewater for both entities. So they have the ability to call on us. We have the ability to call on them if we ever get into a bind.
Yeah, and just to reinforce that is that, the county operates Dewey's water system. And so they're looking to have backup for their side as much as we're looking to have backup for our side. So this is truly a mutual aid on both sides, and it's as called for by either party.
And so this Tom and I attended the Sussex County Council meeting yesterday, and this was unanimously approved. The only thing I would note is the copy that you have, the only adjustment that was made, which Sussex County they received and adjusted, which was there was a reference in section 8 that referenced section 9, but we have modified that back to section 8. So
Excuse me a sec, can we stay on?
it's both. So that's what we have.
Look, I think this is great. The reality is that we're helping them, they're helping us. Anything that happens in one location tends to ultimately affect something in a different location because waterways are what they are. I think this is a great step in mutual understanding and help.
And they've helped us in the past, and it's been very helpful. You might as well.
Yeah.
I think it's good to have the assigned agreement.
Absolutely.
And we expect to have their signed agreement by, I think Todd said today.
I have an electronic copy, but they're
Oh,
going to send the normal mailed copy.
So they have a motion to,
There's comment.
No, that's
No,
for the,
that's
that's something else.
Address that during.
Oh, okay, fine.
they have a motion to approve the mutual aid agreement.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So, call to the public. So Josh, if you want to,
Let me first by apologizing to Tim. I didn't catch your question in time. This is regarding the pole attachment agreement. If I can read this clearly, it says the BPW should consider doing an audit of the pole attachments throughout the city. It appears you may not know who has attached to the poles. Sorry, it's very blurry. Tim, if you'd like to comment, you can just raise your hand and then I can promote you.
Now, this is an agreement from now on to charge $100 to make an application. So we're just getting the application in, right?
If I may, I think what the suggestion is the fact that, yes, what was set was the application fee going forward, but the suggestion is do you know all the poles in the city? Do you know which ones have what agreement? And has an audit been done or a survey? And
Oh, I see. Okay.
that's the
One of these is an unauthorized attachment
Mhm.
discovery fee.
Right.
Yeah, it's a good point.
So that's a very good point. And if we don't have it, we should have it.
We do have a fairly detailed list that was done in 2005.
It's been a while.
Well, but we haven't had pole attachments come through. So in theory, if you're basing it off of that, the only new one that we've had is Fiber Tech.
Right.
So considering that everybody's good and nobody does anything bad or illegal, we have a fairly detailed list that has pole numbers and then who is attached. But we can always revisit it.
One of the things I remember when we were going through that 5G was you couldn't make the fee too exorbitant because it had to be, I think,
To
considered like a
reasonable,
fair,
yeah.
exactly. So you can't really gouge people on that fee was the other issue.
and, we have been collecting abandoned drops. And we do have them. So we probably need to go take that one step further of getting rid of them and doing it, and then seeing what other ones are out there. But I know Press and I have been doing walkarounds towns and making lists, and so because there are, as was pointed out before, a lot of abandoned lines.
And when you look up, it's not pretty. I mean, you don't do it often. But when you look up at those wires, there's a lot up there.
Well, and as much as the ones looking up, I mean, I would the ones that are on the ground and coiling them. And I usually keep a bunch of zip ties in my pocket because they're hazards.
Yeah. Okay.
Hello, Tim.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
And
Thank you for letting me speak to you all. What I'm suggesting is the need for a field audit of who and what is attached to your poles. There becomes a spatial requirement for each communication company that is attached to the pole. They need to maintain a certain separation. And if there are attachments which are no longer being used, it's an opportunity for the attachee to be notified that they need to remove their attachments, and to also maintain the National Electric Safety Code separation that is part of managing the pole system and all the attachments. So it's something that would probably serve the BPW well to really understand who and what is attached to what poles. And if there is a need for poles to be replaced because they are cluttered with attachments, then there is a vehicle by which the poles can be replaced at not the expense of the BPW, but at the expense of the parties that are attached to the pole.
But I think that's what Austin explained, that we actually do have a pretty detailed list of all the attachments that are out there. Isn't that correct, Austin?
Yeah, we don't know what's abandoned and what's non-abandoned, but we have a list of 800 and something poles that have, they have who is on the poll number. So it's a starting point.
And what I'm suggesting also is that you do a field measurement to make sure that what Tom, I think it was, or our press was describing, carrying around zip ties to tie up dangling wires, that can be a result of attachments being made too low to poles. And if you actually measure the height of attachment, then you end up, cleaning up what's on the poles. It's all part of managing your assets.
From what I've seen, and this is not 100%, but there may be some between poles. The majority of what we're seeing is people who are disconnecting from Comcast or Verizon, and the lines just get dropped from the house to the pole. It's not necessarily interpole wiring.
Mhm.
Now, there's probably some of that, but that is not the major items that I've noticed anyway. If anyone else has.
So who would be responsible for that?
This service drop still belongs to to Comcast or whichever communication carrier, and they would have a responsibility of removing it, securing it properly. So
Well,
that's an enforcement issue.
now we should know what.
When a customer disconnect or does away with a system, they don't take the wiring down, I don't think.
Right.
They need it again for the next customer, they may decide to turn it back on.
Exactly.
I don't know when they decide to cut it off, and it might be the homeowner themselves.
Yeah, or it just, windstorms
Yeah.
and it's not being used, so to the homeowner, but there's an awful lot of them out there.
Yeah.
Is there an opportunity when the Christmas lights go up that we can, because we're up the pole anyway, we can figure something out, or is that a opportunistic time to do something like that if needed?
Where the Christmas lights exist, yes, but that's only scratching the surface. That's the iceberg
Do you
method.
think the guys would do that if it was hanging anyway? Wouldn't they just take it down?
I would, you get dicey because you'd have to identify what is in use and what's not in use. I mean,
If
it's like they,
it's laying on the ground.
yeah, that you may. It's,
Wear your rubber boots out there.
yeah. It's a-
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What do we?
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
Let us discuss it internally at staff.
Yeah, it can be done. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
There's nothing else.
Call to the press. Good evening.
Good evening, Aaron Mushrush with the Cape Gazette here. A
you?
couple of questions. I actually have one for Josh. And it is about FirstNet. And I know it just would be a trial period, but I just was looking for clarification on the mobile service. Would the connection in the service, would that be killed for all AT&T customers, or would that be just for FirstNet customers that would kind of have their service cut off so the first responders and utility people would be able to use them?
So again, this is my understanding, is that in the event of a major situation, that the quote to me was that FirstNet customers on the AT&T, as an AT&T provider, they would have priority over consumers. So therefore, if there is band, and this is what's explained to me, the consumer will be able to have access to it. But again, those in the FirstNet community would have first priority.
Okay.
So.
Thank you very much. My next question is actually about the pole attachment agreement. Do you think that the drive and the application process, is that going to be coming from residents, or is that going to be coming from telecommunication providers? I don't know where that would be coming from.
It's a mixture. So a lot of it has to do with telecommunications. But I will tell you that one of the companies that approached us actually received federal funding through ARPA for underserved areas. And they were clearly going to places that don't necessarily have the reach from Verizon and Comcast. They may only be served by one. So just that's kind of where we see it. It's not so much from the customers. We actually looked at a project, was it 6 years ago? It was when I first started, about providing actually an internet service to customers through fiber. And that there was a lot of interest. We spoke at a couple HOA meetings, and the only thing, it was a very large capital investment.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And the market has changed. since
Yes,
then.
very much so. A lot of push from fiber to going to cell. So what we were looking at was like a fiber to the home, which is actually fiber into the home. But in today's day and age, there's a big push for 5G and what wireless is coming down the line.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
My third and final question is pertaining to the line of credit. And with a loan, I kind of understand you take the loan, you have the loan, you got to pay back the loan. With a line of credit, it's not necessarily like you're taking that money. In regards to that 10 years, is that 10-year payback date, is that 2033, or is that going to be when you would be taking out money from the loan? Would that be as the 10-year?
It's the initial borrowing. So
Okay.
it's actually in the resolution what that 10-year period is, but it's that initial borrowing.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's everything. So do we need an executive session?
Items.
Minutes.
Yeah, let's go into it.
Okay, so have a motion to go into executive session,
So moved.
Second.
in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
all right. Thank you, everyone.